Hey everyone, Drew Murray here from D20 Advice and Haircut! So yeah, I now have short hair, which is weird. I'm struggling to cope with it. I've currently got some gel in it to try and hold it up, but yeah, my hair is unruly. I'm not used to things touching my forehead, so that's weird. I also used to tie my hair back and pull it back into a tightish ponytail. I didn't consider it tight at the time, but yeah, so it pulled my hair flat to my head, like this. So having some height to my hair just feels weird to me. It doesn't look quite right. Anyway, on to gaming stuff. I've recently joined the Nerdarchy Writers Group, so yay! So that's really awesome, and thank you to Nerdarchy for allowing me into the family. It's cool. But one thing that I am seeing is that we all have a great love of a great many games. And that's something I want to do with this channel, is talk about more games than just D&D. Which is cool, and that's what I'm going to be doing. One thing that we're thinking of doing is setting up a Star Trek game, and that got me thinking about Star Trek in gaming, and science fiction, and storytelling, and stuff. And I also played, the other evening with my wife, Vampire the Requiem. It's a World of Darkness game that we've been playing for a while, and I felt that the sessions weren't going well, that I wasn't able to get the nice feeling that I got from GMing the majority of my games. And I got it the other evening. I had that feeling. And I've identified why I had that feeling. So now I need to work out how to get that feeling across all games. So this upcoming Star Trek Adventures game that we're going to be playing is giving me a small degree of trepidation, but not an awful lot, because I feel like I'm closer now to getting that consistent good feeling as a GM. So, in Dungeons & Dragons, D&D, when you're running a game, I get a good feeling when things connect. When a part of the story connects to a previous part and the players go, "Oh!" Great feeling. When a mechanic, through random chance, achieves a dramatic result, you get that good feeling. Through just the simple progression of the story, getting to a satisfying conclusion, you get that good feeling. I did not get that good feeling when I was running Vampire. Week by week, we were just going through a storyline that I'd established, and we were having a look at the, I think they're called ambitions. I'm going to be corrected, I'm sure. It begins with an A, anyway. Parts of a character that are set up that are meant to be slightly meta, or meta, as someone keeps trying to tell me that it's supposed to be pronounced, even though it's a word that means something entirely different in English than it does in its native Greek, and so the pronunciation can change along with it. Anyway, the Vampire game, you get certain things. It suggests 3 that your character wants to achieve. Now, these can be meta. They can be, I want to be in a fight with a werewolf. And that may not be something that the character wants, but that the player wants to see the character go through. It can even be, I want to see the tragic loss of all of my friends. I want to be in a lonely, dark, horror place. And you get experience points, or sections of experience points, called beats. What we might consider experience points in other game systems, these beats collect up and become an experience point, which we might identify in other game systems as levels. So it's a different mechanical system. But anyway, you can spend these experience points to get things. Beats build up into experience. Experience is what you spend to improve your character. You get beats from working towards, getting closer to, or achieving these ends that you've chosen. I wasn't addressing those. I wasn't using the mechanics that are there to help me and the player achieve a satisfying end. I wasn't using them. I was world building. I was saying, okay, You're a vampire. This is vampires. Let's explore the lore of this world. And so that's what I ended up doing. I started exploring, this is this type of vampire, this is this type of vampire, the kind of thing that you go through in character creation. We went through some parts of it, and I wanted to introduce it in the game. And I started thinking, why? Why do I want to introduce this in the game? Why do I want the in-game character to have this knowledge? And I thought, well, that's because these characters would pick up that knowledge. How do I handle that in Dungeons & Dragons, though? The game where I more frequently get satisfaction. Well, in Dungeons & Dragons, we just accept that these characters exist in this fantasy world and just generally know things. We only approach the information when it's required. You don't have a role-playing session of them going through the school life or the school age life, because they likely wouldn't have had schools in sort of medieval Dungeons & Dragons type setting. You would have to go through all of their upbringing and all of their interactions and encounters up to the point where they started adventuring for you to build up that knowledge. In Vampire, it's deceptive. Because in this game, my wife was playing a newly transformed vampire, and so was being introduced to this world. Now, granted, in between sessions, we had time jumps, like a week later, a week after the last set of events. So you've had some time to relax and read up on things. That should be the time where she learns about all this stuff, so that we can just go straight to the fun adventures. Because I'm running this as a solo adventure purely for my wife, I should be doing this better. I should be able to better tailor the events and the story to her character. But I haven't been. Because I was new to the Vampire the Requiem role-playing game, I spent a lot of time going over things that I should be having secure in my mind with the player, making sure that they understood it as well. And they did nothing with this information. They could do nothing with this information. It would simply be an air of recognition if they encountered a Nosferatu vampire that would go, oh, I know all your traits and abilities now. Why is that the end that I was working towards? It certainly wasn't a conscious end that I was working towards, but that's the end result. Just a recognition from the player and the character of something. Whereas normally in Dungeons & Dragons, I would just simply say, your character would recognize this as this. So, the most recent session, I directly addressed one of the things that was down on her character sheet as something to do. Most of the session surrounded that. And it wasn't even the focus from my point of view, but from her point of view, ate it up, enjoyed that scene. That scene took the majority of the time. The rest of it was the window dressing on either side. How she got to that area, which, again, wasn't directly connected to it. It just was a tangential... Right, you get to this area, you're doing this thing connected to the main plot that we've been building up, and, oh, look, this thing is here. She deals with that, she enjoys it, and then we go back to, and now you're finishing up this thing that you did at the other end. And you head back home to carry on with the main plot later on. And now she's picked a new thing to do as a character, because she's now entirely completed that ambition of hers, that wish that she had to fulfill as a player for her character. And it was just such a good session. I'm struggling to express this without going into too much detail, which would be boring for a lot of people. So just understand that knowing the kind of game you're playing and the players, but also there's a general rule in what I'm saying in that you don't need to front load everything. And that will give you a lot of enjoyment to not front load things. So to get to this Star Trek thing, I am a huge Star Trek nerd. I love Star Trek a lot. It's a running gag with my wife and I that if I am going on and on about something relatively boring to most people involved in the conversation, Romulan politics is spoken into my ear, and I know at that point I should stop talking. There was an occasion where my wife and I were alone, and I started talking about Romulan politics. Apropos of nothing. It came out of left field. There was nothing to prompt it externally. It's just in my mind, I make a lot of very quick connections, and I start externalizing the later parts of those connections. So I started talking about Romulan politics because something that had just occurred reminded me of something else that reminded me of something else that I equated to something in Star Trek, and then started thinking about, well, that's because of that, that's because of this, that's because of this, and oh, well, this is due to the differences in the two sides of the Romulan political system. You've got the Romulans and the Remans, and the Remans are second-class citizens, you've got the Romulans, but you've got different parties in the Romulan Senate, and on and on and on I go. So, how to introduce people that aren't necessarily that well acquainted with Star Trek with the Star Trek role-playing game? What I've come to as a conclusion is I will not front-load it. It will simply be, here's the game, these are the roles that we're going to be playing, these are the kinds of adventures we're going to be adventuring on. Here's a brief summary during character creation of the various factions that are going on. Once we start the game proper, we're playing the game. Any information that they need will be background info presented as, this is what your character would know in this situation. I'm not going to run the first 3 or 4 sessions of, oh, your ship is requested to go to Earth. You learn this about Earth and this about Earth, and demonstrating in the game the things that they would pick up. Normally, the things that basically confirming through gameplay information that they would already have. It's great to do that as part of flavor for something else, but if that's the entirety of it, if that's the meat of the journey that you're presenting to your players, for me, it's turned out some very unsatisfactory sessions. Now, my wife has been very kind and says that she's quite enjoyed the vampire sessions so far, partly because there have been considerable gaps between the sessions, and so she's not retaining a lot of the information gained through the character creation, session 0 that we had. So she is still learning things. But to me, I know that that's not the meat, that's not the core of the game. That the core of the game should be progressing the character's journey, and not just further establishing the world. Further establishing the world is indulgent for me, and I walk away with a very bad feeling at the end, because I know that I haven't provided the needed kind of gameplay that would really enrich a player's experience. So my wife has been kind. She said that she's enjoyed it, because I do run a game pretty well, so I can kind of hide when I'm doing things badly, but I know when I'm doing badly. And I don't want to let me off the hook for it. So yeah, this is a video rant and also a showing off the new haircut thing. So yeah, let me know what you guys think of the gameplay stuff. The haircut, unfortunately, is here to stay. So don't let me know what you think. It will not affect the haircut at all. God. Bye.